Ingersoll's lecture on skulls. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Ingersoll's lecture on skulls is part of the book Lectures of Colonel Robert Greene Ingersoll. Ladies and gentlemen, man advances just in the proportion that he mingles his thoughts with his labor, just in the proportion that he takes advantage of the forces of nature, just in proportion as he loses superstition and gains confidence in himself. Man advances as he ceases to fear the gods and learns to love his fellow men. It is all, in my judgment, a question of intellectual development. Tell me the religion of any man, and I will tell you the degree he marks on the intellectual thermometer of the world. It is a simple question of the brain. Those among us who are the nearest barbarism have a barbarian religion. Those who are nearest civilization have the least superstition. It is, I say, a simple question of brain, and I want in the first place to lay the foundation to prove that assertion. A little while ago I saw models of nearly everything that man has made. I saw models of all the watercraft, from the rude dugout in which floated a naked savage, one of our ancestors, a naked savage with teeth twice as long as his forehead was high, with a spoonful of brains in the back of his orthodox head. I saw models of all the watercraft of the world, from that dugout to a man of war that carries 100 guns and miles of canvas. From that dugout to the steamship that turns its brave prow from the port of New York with a compass like a conscience, crossing 3,000 miles of billows without missing a throb or beat of its mighty iron heart from shore to shore. And I saw at the same time the paintings of the world, from the rude daub of yellow mud to the landscapes that enrich palaces and adorn houses of what were once called the common people. I saw also their sculpture, from the rude god with 4 legs, a half-dozen arms, several noses, and 2 or 3 rows of ears, and 1 little contemptible brainless head, up to the figures of today, to the marbles that genius has clad in such a personality that it seems almost impudent to touch them without an introduction. I saw their books written upon the skins of wild beasts, upon shoulder blades of sheep, books written upon leaves, upon bark, up to the splendid volumes that enrich the libraries of our day. When I speak of libraries, I think of the remark of Plato, "A house that has a library in it has a soul." I saw at the same time the offensive weapons that man has made, from a club, such as was grasped by that same savage when he crawled from his den in the ground and hunted a snake for his dinner, from that club to the boomerang, to the sword, to the crossbow, to the blunderbuss, to the flintlock, to the caplock, to the needle gun, up to a cannon cast by Krupp, capable of hurling a ball weighing 2,000 pounds through 18 inches of solid steel. I saw, too, the armor, from the shell of a turtle that one of our brave ancestors lashed upon his breast when he went to fight for his country, the skin of a porcupine dried with the quills on, which this same savage pulled over his orthodox head, up to the shirts of mail that were worn in the Middle Ages, that laughed at the edge of the sword and defied the point of the spear, up to a monitor clad in complete steel. And I say orthodox not only in the matter of religion, but in everything. Whoever has quit growing, he is orthodox, whether in art, politics, religion, philosophy, no matter what. Whoever thinks he has found it all out, he is orthodox. Orthodoxy is that which rots, and heresy is that which grows forever. Orthodoxy is the night of the past. full of the darkness of superstition, and heresy is the eternal coming day, the light of which strikes the foreheads of the grand pioneers of the world. I saw their implements of agriculture, from the plow made of a crooked stick, attached to the horn of an ox by some twisted straw, with which our ancestors scraped the earth; and from that to the agricultural implements of this generation, that make it possible for a man to cultivate the soil without being an ignoramus. In the old time there was but one crop, and when the rain did not come in answer to the prayer of hypocrites, a famine came, and people fell upon their knees. At that time they were full of superstition. They were frightened all the time, for fear that some god would be enraged at his poor, hapless, feeble, and starving children. But now, instead of depending upon one crop, they have several, and if there is not rain enough for one, there may be enough for another; and if the frosts kill all, we have railroads and steamship, enough to bring what we need from some other part of the world. Since man has found out something about agriculture, the gods have retired from the business of producing famines. I saw at the same time their musical instruments, from the tom-tom, that is, a hoop with a couple of strings of rawhide drawn across it, from that tom-tom up to the instruments we have today, that make the common air blossom with melody. And I said to myself, there is a regular advancement. I saw at the same time a row of human skulls, from the lowest skull that has been found, the Neanderthal skull, skulls from Central Africa, skulls from the Bushmen of Australia, skulls from the farthest isles of the Pacific Sea, up to the best skulls of the last generation. And I noticed that there was the same difference between those skulls that there was between the products of those skulls. And I said to myself, after all, it is a simple question of intellectual development. There was the same difference between those skulls, the lowest and highest skulls, that there was between the dugout and the man of war and the steamship, between the club and the Krupp gun, between the yellow daub and the landscape, between the tom-tom and an opera by Verdi. The first and lowest skull in this row was the den in which crawled the base and meaner instincts of mankind, and the last was a temple in which dwelt joy, liberty, and love. And I said to myself, it is all a question of intellectual development. Man has advanced just as he has mingled his thought with his labor. As he has grown he has taken advantage of the forces of nature, first of the moving wind, then of the falling water, and finally of steam. From one step to another he has obtained better houses, better clothes, and better books, and he has done it by holding out every incentive to the ingenious to produce them. The world has said, give us better clubs and guns and cannons with which to kill our fellow Christians. And whoever will give us better weapons and better music and better houses to live in, we will robe him in wealth, crown him in honor, and render his name deathless. Every incentive was held out to every human being to improve these things, and that is the reason we have advanced in all mechanical arts. But that gentleman in the dugout not only had his ideas about politics, mechanics, and agriculture, he had his ideas also about religion. His ideas about politics was might makes right. It will be thousands of years, maybe, before mankind will believe in the saying that right makes might. He had his religion. That low skull was a devil factory. He believed in hell, and the belief was a consolation to him. He could see the waves of God's wrath dashing against the rocks of dark damnation. He could see tossing in the white caps the faces of women, and stretching above the crests the dimpled hands of children, and he regarded these things as the justice and mercy of God. And all today who believe in this eternal punishment are the barbarians of the 19th century.